You're really, like, me off right now. I'm serious. Like,
Let me see your phone.
I don't understand why you keep saying that. I'm leaving. Take the donuts, take my phone, and go yourself.
Until now, Jonathan Cheban has spent years denying rumors that he's anything more than Kim Kardashian's closest friend. But during a recent live call on Khloé In Wonderland, something felt off. When asked about Kim and Lewis Hamilton, Jonathan didn't answer the question directly. Instead, he quickly shifted to saying he and Kim would be friends forever. A response some thought sounded less like a confident answer and more like jealousy.
So I haven't seen.
You don't even know.
No, but people post me and things, and people say that Kim and I aren't friends anymore. And it's so funny to watch this stuff because we are friends and we talk all the time, and it's just so I see all these things that pop up, and that's how I know if I'm on the show or not.
So what exactly is Jonathan Cheban to Kim Kardashian? Keep watching as we unveil the surprising answers in full detail. The wrong seat that changed everything. To understand why Jonathan Cheban's reaction to Lewis Hamilton raised so many eyebrows, you have to go all the way back to the dinner party that accidentally changed everything. This was the mid-2000s, years before the Kardashian name became global currency. Back then, Kim Kardashian was still mostly known as Kris Jenner's daughter and Paris Hilton's assistant, the very pretty girl who quietly appeared in the right rooms, slowly learning how celebrities worked. Jonathan, meanwhile, was already inside that world. He was a publicist with real clients, real access, and the kind of connections that got you past velvet ropes without being named on the list. But all that was about to change. The two had a mutual friend, the famous Brittany Gastineau. She was hosting a birthday dinner at Casa Vega, a Mexican restaurant in Sherman Oaks, California. Jonathan arrived with Hilary Duff and Haley Duff as clients, expecting a normal Hollywood dinner. But the second he walked in, he saw a problem sitting dangerously close to the table he had reserved: Lindsay Lohan. At the time, Lindsay was deep in her tabloid era, and Jonathan knew exactly what would happen if photographers caught them seated near each other. Headlines, rumors, and drama were things he did not want associated with his clients. So he quietly told Brittany he needed another seat. Anywhere else in the restaurant would do. Brittany laughed, pointed to her own chair, and told him to take it. And sitting directly beside that chair was Kim Kardashian. Jonathan has retold this story for years because, honestly, it sounds too perfectly Hollywood to be fake. And they both clicked immediately. They bonded over nightlife, gossip, fashion, food, celebrity culture, all the chaotic energy of mid-2000s Hollywood that both of them secretly understood better than most people around them. But what makes the story more interesting now is the power dynamic at the time, because contrary to how people see them today, Jonathan was actually the more connected person when they met. He was not some random guy orbiting fame. He owned Command PR, had actual celebrity clients, and understood the mechanics of publicity years before Kim fully stepped into that machine herself. On paper, the friendship probably benefited Kim more than Jonathan in those early years. And that detail matters, because it makes everything that happened later on feel far less opportunistic and a lot more personal. But everything changed when Kim's life exploded. The release of the adult tape in 2007, followed by Keeping Up with the Kardashians premiering that same October, launched her into a level of fame almost nobody could have predicted. And through all of it, Jonathan was right there inside the orbit, helping shape parts of the image in ways viewers did not fully realize at the time. In a 2019 episode of True Hollywood Story, Jonathan admitted that some of Kim's earliest paparazzi moments were literally his ideas. One of the most famous involved the two of them borrowing a stranger's Rolls-Royce Phantom outside a New York restaurant. then arriving at a hotel crowded with paparazzi who were waiting for Britney Spears. They stepped out looking like A-list royalty. Cameras immediately started flashing, and by the next day, stories were circulating that Kim Kardashian had gone to visit Britney Spears. But here's the shocker. None of it was true. The entire thing was manufactured. And Jonathan was the mastermind behind everything. As we'll see, this case would be just one out of several. Keeping Up with the Kardashians. As Keeping Up with the Kardashians became one of the biggest reality shows in television history, Jonathan slowly became one of the most recognizable people in Kim's life, and eventually one of the most recognizable recurring faces on the show itself. He appeared across multiple seasons, showing up for birthdays, vacations, shopping trips, private conversations, emotional breakdowns, and all those strange Kardashian moments where nobody could tell what was real anymore and what was partially staged for entertainment. And this is exactly where the more than friends conversation really began. Because viewers noticed something about them that never quite matched normal friendship energy. Like any unfolding love story, they touched constantly and finished each other's sentences. Jonathan would walk into Kim's house unannounced, and nobody treated it as unusual. He commented on her relationships with the same confidence and authority as her sisters did, not with the careful distance most friends usually keep once romance gets complicated, and Kim simply allowed it. Fans eventually started jokingly calling him Kim's third husband. But the joke lasted for years because there was always something underneath it that people could not fully explain. The closeness felt different. Not necessarily romantic, but definitely emotionally intense in a way viewers kept circling back to over and over again. Which suddenly makes that Lewis Hamilton comment feel a little more interesting. Because Jonathan has spent almost 20 years publicly insisting he stays out of Kim's romantic life completely. He has repeated it in interview after interview, including conversations with Us Weekly and E! News. His wording barely changes. "I don't get involved with guy stuff or relationship stuff for her." He says it like it is a personal boundary he established long ago. Yet that is also what makes the recent reactions stand out. When asked directly about Kim and Lewis Hamilton, Jonathan could have simply laughed it off, denied the rumors, and moved on. Instead, he pivoted almost immediately into talking about his forever friendship with Kim, which to a lot of fans sounded strangely territorial for someone who supposedly stays out of her dating life altogether. He was not angry, not dramatic, just oddly emotional. And maybe that is why people still cannot figure him out. He was never officially a boyfriend. He was never the stereotypical gay best friend label tabloids lazily tried to force onto him whenever they could not explain the closeness. He was just Jonathan, always present, always trusted, always somehow impossible to categorize. When Kim's relationships became messy, Jonathan stayed. When scandals exploded, Jonathan was seen near her. When marriages collapsed, Jonathan comforted her. Multiple people close to the Kardashians have claimed over the years that Jonathan was often one of the first people Kim called whenever something happened that she needed to process privately. And through all of it, his attitude never really changed. The Kardashians have repeatedly described him as someone who doesn't kiss and tell or weaponize private information for clout. But all that comes into question when we closely examine his attitude towards Kim, at the time when she was still with Kanye West. This is where Jonathan's answers about Kim stop making sense. Jonathan's concerns about Kanye West. When Kim and Kanye West went public in 2012, the energy around Kim's entire world shifted in a way that even people inside her circle couldn't fully explain. Kanye wasn't just another celebrity boyfriend. He brought a different kind of intensity to the show and Kim's personal life. Unlike the other guys she's been with, Kanye was far more controlling. So much so that every relationship around him felt like it was being reframed in real time. Kim's old friends were slowly but surely getting pushed away, and she could hardly resist for most of the time. Many people from Kim's earlier, nightlife social world slowly faded out of view. The easy, always accessible orbit she once moved in started tightening. Yet Jonathan was never treated the same way, even though he had strong concerns about Kanye from the get-go. One look at Kanye's history through 7 years of marriage showed why Jonathan felt uncomfortable, but hardly spoke about it. In February 2016, Kanye released Famous, which had graphic lyrics about Taylor Swift. When asked about this, to everyone's surprise, Kim publicly defended him, leaking a recorded phone call on Snapchat to prove that Taylor Swift had approved it. When the full recording surfaced in 2020, it showed the call had been edited by Kanye, who never told his wife about it. Kim alone took the blame for years before the truth came out that it was her husband behind all of it. But that was just the start of Kanye's wildest moves. That same year, Kanye met with President-elect Donald Trump at Trump Tower, which put Kim in the middle of a political firestorm she never asked for. He was a strong supporter of Trump, and his MAGA hat appearances and pro-Trump tweets easily made her a target for backlash from her own fan base. In May 2018, Kanye walked into TMZ's offices and told the entire country that 400 years of slavery sounded like a choice. Kim told Kelly Ripa and Ryan Seacrest that it gave her her first gray hair. A source confirmed she was blindsided and had received zero warning before he went on air. Then came July 2020. Kanye announced a presidential run, held a rally in South Carolina, where he cried on stage and revealed that he and Kim had discussed aborting their first child, North, without her permission to share that publicly. Days later, he was on Twitter claiming Kim was trying to have him hospitalized, tweeting that he wanted a divorce, and publicly attacking Kris Jenner. Kim was forced to address his bipolar disorder publicly for the first time, calling him brilliant but complicated, while the entire world watched. Kanye later admitted at a Thanksgiving prayer in November 2021 that he had embarrassed Kim with the presidential campaign. By then, she had already filed for divorce 9 months earlier. All these things made Jonathan uncomfortable with the relationship, and the early signs were apparent to him, even before their relationship went public in 2012. Kim knew about his concerns, yet he remained present in the same way he always had. Looking back now, it's easy to see that still keeping him close, despite not having a great rapport with her husband, would have required either Kim deliberately keeping him close, or Kanye being comfortable with how close he was with his wife. And, most likely, it was not the second option. Strangely enough, details about Jonathan's friendship with Kim at that time are still kept close to the chest, but he pulled no punches in describing Kim's years with Kanye as some of the most stressful times of her life. As far as he knew, it was only a matter of time before everything crashed and burned. It took much longer than some fans expected, but the big day finally came in February 2021, when Kim Kardashian filed for divorce from Kanye West. And as always, many were curious about what Kim's friends thought about her husband before all this happened. Jonathan Cheban appeared on The Wendy Williams Show that June, and his answer landed differently than most expected. He said he wasn't surprised. Contrary to what many expected, he didn't sound heartbroken, shocked, or diplomatic. His answers and mannerisms showed the attitude of someone who was genuinely not surprised by how things turned out. And that choice of words matters, because not surprised implies something more complicated. A long-term observation, a sense of pattern recognition from someone who had been close enough to see the rhythm of things as they developed, not just the headlines when they ended. He did add that he missed Kanye, He called his energy brilliant and inspiring and said he loved both of them. He refused to turn the breakup into a side moment or become the friend who monetizes loyalty after the fact. And in doing so, he managed a delicate balance that most people in his position failed to protect. Protecting Kim's space, while not publicly erasing Kanye from his narrative either. In a 2025 interview with Us Weekly, Jonathan Cheban casually mentioned that he sometimes finds out whether he appears on the Kardashians by seeing TikTok clips, not because anyone tells him directly. Jonathan's world shifted too. He leaned further into Foodgod, expanded into food media and brand work, and began building a presence that didn't depend on Kim at all. He became someone people recognized for what he was doing, not just who he was near. And for this reason, they were hardly seen together ever since, so much so that many thought they were fighting. But things wouldn't stay that way for long. Unexpectedly, a major scandal was on the horizon. Kim's FaceTime call that broke the internet. On January 21st, 2026, during an episode of Khloé In Wonderland, Kim Kardashian brought up Jonathan Cheban in conversation. She said she did not understand why people thought they were no longer in touch. Then she picked up her phone and called him live on the podcast. Jonathan answered from Miami while he was having dinner. Kim told him she was on air with Khloé. They spoke about early Hollywood days and things they had experienced together years ago, before Kim's life became centered around family, business, and public structure. Khloé was part of the conversation and reacted as it happened, confirming how long they had known each other and how much history they shared. Jonathan said during the call that he and Kim still spoke regularly, just not in public view. He also said the idea that they had drifted apart was not true. Kim explained on air that her life had changed because of her kids and her work. She said she was not as available as before. Jonathan also moved around a lot for work, so they were not always in the same place. The call went on for a few minutes before it ended normally, without any tension or awkward moments. After the episode, Jonathan said in an interview that people misunderstood their situation. He said they were still in touch and that nothing had changed between them. He said they would always be friends. Then in May 2026, Jonathan Cheban was at a Vulture event in New York when he was asked about Kim Kardashian and Lewis Hamilton after photos of them holding hands came out publicly. He laughed when the question came up. He said he was not going to talk about it. He added that he had already been through 2 of Kim's marriages and did not want to get involved in the next one. When asked if they looked good together, he said yes. He said they fit well. He called them balanced and said they matched each other's energy. He also said he had met Lewis Hamilton before and seen them together. He did not say anything more after that. This has been his pattern for years. When Kim has been linked with Kanye West, Pete Davidson, or others, Jonathan has always stayed out of the details. He gives short answers, supports her generally, and avoids deep comments about her relationships. What they actually are. As we've covered, Jonathan Cheban met Kim Kardashian at a birthday dinner in Sherman Oaks at Casa Vega. He arrived with Hilary Duff and Haley Duff, with whom he was working at the time. Because of the attention around other celebrities in the restaurant, he asked to move seats. He was placed next to Kim. That is how they met. After that, Jonathan became part of Kim's circle as she started rising in fame. He helped with early publicity moments, including staged paparazzi situations that added to her early media attention. When Keeping Up with the Kardashians started in 2007, Jonathan appeared on the show. Over time, he showed up in many episodes, including events, trips, and family moments. Though he allegedly didn't like it, people had started calling him Kim's third husband because of how often he was around her. Jonathan always said he was just her friend and did not get involved in her personal or financial matters. When Kim started dating Kanye West in 2012, Jonathan stayed in the circle. When Kim filed for divorce from Kanye in 2021, Jonathan spoke about it in interviews. He said he was not surprised by the split. He also said he missed Kanye and called him creative and inspiring, but he did not take sides. By 2022, Kim and Jonathan were no longer seen together as often in public. Their last widely noted appearance together was in Miami in December that year. In 2025, Jonathan said in an interview that he sometimes only found out he was on the Kardashians after seeing clips online. In January 2026, Kim called him live on Khloé In Wonderland, and they spoke on air. Jonathan confirmed they were still in contact. After that, he said their friendship had not ended, and that people had misunderstood the lack of public appearances. After 2022, people assumed Kim Kardashian and Jonathan Cheban had stopped being close because they were not seen together as often. But later events showed they were still in contact. The live phone call in 2026 confirmed that they were still speaking and still connected, even if it was not visible to the public. Jonathan said the rumors about them falling out were not true. Kim also explained that her life had simply become busier because of her kids and work. The difference was not that the friendship ended, it was that it stopped being public. That was what he revealed about his relationship with Kim, albeit shrouded with hints interpreted by some fans as jealousy. The clues imply that what exists between Kim Kardashian and Jonathan Cheban today is not the friendship it was in 2009, and it was never going to be. Kim has 4 children, a billion-dollar business, a law career she is actively pursuing, and a new relationship with Lewis Hamilton that her own daughter North has been pushing her toward. Her world has no room for the spontaneous, camera-ready version of any friendship anymore, including this one. Jonathan seems to understand that. He lives in Miami and New York, shows up when he is called, and keeps himself out of everything controversial. When E! News asked him about Hamilton, he said they were going to be friends forever and moved on. That answer was not a deflection, but the result of knowing exactly where the line is and never crossing it. The friendship survived a donut fight, a leaked secrets accusation, 2 years of public silence, and 3 of Kim's marriages. Many believe it will survive Lewis Hamilton as well. The reason is simple. Jonathan Cheban has never needed anything from Kim Kardashian except the friendship itself. And in her world at least, that is rarer than anything money can buy. So, what do you think? Has Jonathan Cheban spent 20 years as Kim Kardashian's closest friend, or has there always been something more to this story that neither of them has ever been willing to say out loud? Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now click on the next video on your screen. You will enjoy it.